Welcome to How I Rent It, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on the tent rental industry. I'm Tony Ehrbar, the owner of American Tent, one of the leading event tent manufacturers in the U.S. As someone who got started in the event rental industry over 10 years ago, I'm excited to bring you the stories behind the people who keep events running smoothly. Was watching an episode of Shark Tank one night, had a couple of beers, and went on Craigslist, and in Green Bay was a tent rental business.
At the end of the day, failure was not an option. I'm going to do this.
Is this your first time on a podcast?
It is my first time on one, listening to one, seeing one. Yes, sir.
Each episode, we'll talk to inspiring event rental business owners to learn how they got started, the challenges they've faced, and their secrets to success. Whether you're dreaming of starting your own rental business or just love hearing great entrepreneurial stories with plenty of intent puns thrown in, this podcast is for you. Stephen has been through the rental industry for over 15 years.
And I was born under a tent.
This is the part where we're going to get into where we're going to have like VP of HR come in and just like okay the questions and answers. What does Ricky Bobby say? If you ain't first, you're last.
That's it. Absolutely.
So grab your coffee, your notebook, or just sit back and relax with a box of popcorn. Subscribe now on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts, and join me as we uncover the journey behind the tent rental industry and how I rent it. Welcome back to How I Rent It, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the tent rental industry, where we share valuable insights, success stories, and lessons from entrepreneurs who built their rental business from the ground up. I'm your host, Tony Ehrbar, owner of American Tent. And today I'm excited to welcome Adam Keller, founder of Tent All Rental, based in Central New York. Adam started his business as a side hustle back in 2005 with just 3 tents. Over the years, he's grown it into a successful rental company known for efficiency, smart scaling, and high quality equipment. You might also know him as the Tent Guy from YouTube, where he shares practical advice for others looking to break into the rental industry. In today's episode, we'll hear how Adam built his business, what he learned along the way, and mindset that helped him succeed in the tent rental industry. If you're looking for practical insights and honest take on how to grow a rental business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. How's it going, man?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Good to see you.
You too.
We got competing names on the bottom. So I showed you earlier, I have my tent man license plate just kind of right out of view here. And you're the tent guy. So got the tent man, the tent guy on the call.
Yeah, so whenever we showed up to a job site, someone, the daughter, kid, whatever, be like, Mom, the tent guy's here. So when I started the YouTube channel, I was like, what am I going to call it? The tent guy.
Love it. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. I actually pinched a nerve in my neck a week ago, and so we had to reschedule. And so I'm awkwardly shifting in my chair. If you're watching this on video, it's because I'm trying to work out some kinks in the neck. But so tell us about your business.
I rent out tents, tables, and chairs, and all the other stuff. Restroom trailers. I used to do dishes, but not anymore. Got out of that. But rent out pretty much the same thing everyone else rents out. Nothing. We don't go too spectacularly specialized or high end.
Okay. And how far of a radius do you service?
Wherever anyone is willing to pay. But I'm up in Central New York, and the population is pretty big. So, 50 miles in either direction. We recently 2 years ago now, cut out this one big town. It's called Old Forge, New York, just because it takes an hour to get up there. And you're up there all day, and it's mountainous, and the underneath ground is all bedrock and stuff. So we stopped going up there, even though it's not that far away. It's still, you go up there, you're there all day long when you could have done, 5 jobs back in your immediate area.
Trying to find a spot in between the rocks and the ground. We have that in Door County here, where I'd send my crews up, and they'd call and they're like, hey, we're not finding good spots to put these stakes into.
Yeah, it's rough. And then also it's a lot of lakes. So you go down this really treacherous driveway, and then you get somewhere and you're like, okay, I don't know where it's going. You have to go all the way around the house. It was just not always worth it. But but 50 miles in either direction. But if someone's willing to pay more, I'll go.
Okay. Got it. And you have one location?
Yeah, just one.
Okay. And how many employees?
Seasonal, but right now 7 to 8 seasonal. And then once it's wintertime, it's just me, the office manager, and the salary guy.
Okay. And then we talked a little bit around the podcast and YouTube videos. So how did you get into doing that and being one of the most famous, well-known faces in the tent industry?
So I watched this guy completely different. He does Magic the Gathering content,
Okay.
and he literally just sets up a camera and talks. He's got no edits or anything. And I
Yeah.
was like, what? That's interesting. And anyone could do that. What do I got to talk about? Uh, Tense. So I was finding like when competitors were coming to pick stuff up from me, like, you know, sub renting chairs or whatever, I would be like, oh, check out this jackhammer. This makes life go faster. Check out this stick puller or this. And they just didn't care. They didn't want to listen. They just, I don't know, figured they knew how to do it better. So I was always trying to like show people things. I was like, oh, let me just talk about the things that I know. And then it just accidentally happened. I think I was one of the first people to do it. And also, I don't get that like fake, like, hey guys, and that. I don't call myself like a YouTuber. There's definitely people who are YouTubers.
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
call myself a dude who does YouTube.
Cool. Well, what were you doing before you started your business?
So I started it right out of college. My roommate in college worked for a big company out of 2 different cities. And so the city we were in, sometimes I would go with him to do tent stuff. And at that point, it was just like hammer this in, move this stuff. And then during the summer, I got a job at Taylor Rental locally. And then I saw invoices and I was like, oh man, this is how much they're making. So I decided to, as soon as I graduated, start a tent company. But before it got big, I worked 80 hours at a gas station saving up for, my first 100 chairs and 10 tables. And then
Okay.
then I worked at a casino cleaning rooms because the flexible schedule, I could, have Friday off to set up and Sunday off to take down.
Yeah.
So I never really had a career job. It was like I started and it was always kind of on the back burner. Like I never thought I was going to be my main source of income, but it ended up being.
Cool. So how much then did you end up funding the business with to start?
For a brief period, I did think I was going to like get a career in an office. So I worked in an insurance company. And they have their own bank just for people that works there. So I got a loan for $20,000. Put my truck up for half, and then the other half unsubsidized. And 20,000. I did have some 20 wides and stuff like that. And the $20,000 was I put on my website. I got a 40 wide dance floors, white padded chairs, and I own none of it. And so I started taking bookings all in the previous year for it. And then I got all these bookings. I'm like, okay, now I need the money to buy the thing. So I took out that $20,000 loan and bought everything that I was going to need for the following summer.
One of the questions I like to ask people, so if you had $10,000 to start a business kind of from scratch, I'm sure you might do it a little differently. How would you spend that $10,000 to get yourself off the ground today?
Stick to the basics, the 20 wides, tables and chairs, sides for them, and just get as much as that $10,000 is going to get me in 20 wides. Because from there, no matter what town in America you're in, that's where you can see where you're going to go. You got to go basic first. Like I know this one guy, he hated tents, but he started in tents, start basic 20 wides. And then he saw the need. He switched into high end stuff. So like he's got chairs that no one has. He's got glassware that people pay $14 for each glass. He's got things that no one else has, but he wouldn't have known that unless he started basic. And I know another lady started basic 20 wides, and then she just went into horse trailers for, bars, and she got out of tents and now just does 3 horse trailers. So in my area, I just found everything basic is what goes out. So myself, $10,000, I'd buy as many 20 wides and tables and chairs to fill them up.
And would you be the weekend guy where you had the day job during the week, or would you go jump in feet first if you're someone new and you're talking to them here?
If they're new, I would weekend it. Yeah, the weekend warrior. I hear a lot of people say that. Until you can replace your income. I know a kid out in Denver. He used to work for Apple or Google or whatever. Got a big severance, and that with like $250,000 and went all in. And then so from day one, he was making a lot of money, but he had $250,000 to start.
Got it. How long did you weekend for yourself? I know you said you started doing it a little bit that way.
It was like 6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And then my deciding factor on to quit real jobs was with my insurance job. I set the hours up to be able to work the 40 hours there, but have certain days off. And so we're driving, setting up a tent, and I get a phone call and they need a 40 by 80 like that Friday. And I'm like, man, I have it. I just don't have the time. That was what I told the guy. Like, I have it. I just can't set it up. So hung up with him. And then we're driving to the job and I'm just swearing and screaming like, you know, the two employees were my friends, so it's okay. And then I was like, whatever, I'm going to do it. So I call him back. I'm like, hey, we can do it. And he's like, great. And we organize it all. And then I go into my job the next day and I say, hey, I got to give my 2 weeks notice. And they're like, oh, well, that sucks. And I'm like, but my 2 week notice is effective 2 weeks ago. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? And then they immediately escorted me out because it's not a place that they let you stay after you do that.
Yeah. Any unexpected costs you didn't anticipate when you got started?
If you never started a business, you don't know about insurance that much. Yeah, insurance kind of sucks. I also didn't realize how many tools you would end up buying and replacing. Yeah, insurance and tools. Tools isn't a bad, unexpected cost because you're going to use them for a long time. But yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the insurance.
Yeah, certainly. We always talk on here. A lot of people have said ARA insurance, just nice because it kind of covers exactly the basics that you need. I don't know if you go with a commercial broker nearby or have you done ARA?
Yeah, so I knew my roommate in college, he knew more about insurance and stuff. So he set me up with his agent. And that was good because when a lot of people are starting, they don't know that there's agents. Like they try to find insurance themselves. And like you try to find an insurance company that covers tents and stuff. You can't Google that. You're never going to find them. Also, they're never going to talk to you. They deal exclusively with agents. So he gave me his agent and they already knew what to do. They got me, auto from here, workers' comp from here, and general liability CPP from here, and then built me everything that I needed. But I wouldn't have known that at all unless I knew him. And that's why I try to tell people a lot too, is you need to go to an agent unless you're going with ARA insurance, because you're never going to find the people that you need. Let them find you the insurances that you need.
Cool. Well, tell us about your first event. How did it go?
My first event, that one's hard. I'm going to kind of conglomerate a whole summer.
Okay.
All I had was tents. I had a 20 by 20, 20 by 30, 20 by 40, and my mom's SUV. So I would just go set them up alone. And then when I had a friend, I would set them up completely the wrong way. But yeah, that whole summer went well. There was I don't remember ever having to go back to a tent to fix it or anything. So yeah, my first summer was good. That was 22 years ago now, so I don't remember my first event.
When you didn't have Google to go online or YouTube to easily go online. So how did you learn how to set tents up properly?
It's weird. When I worked at Taylor Rental, they did not set tents up properly ever. And when I worked with my friend, I didn't have to pay attention to how to set up tents. All I had to do was, do what they told me, hammer this in or whatever. It was just over time, trial and error. Like when we did a 20 by 40 tent, we would put in one corner, and then before even we didn't stake it all the way, and then we would go stake the next corner and hold it and put it up, and it was just completely backwards. So it was just basically like, how can we do this better? Because there was no YouTube or whatever. We used to use MapQuest. So if you really messed up and you got turned around or whatever, there was no like, oh, let me try to find my way back. It was like half hour of driving around trying to find a road.
Your printed directions. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we have Pete McVeigh is on our team, and so a lot of people will go and learn from him on safety and setup on our YouTube videos. So hopefully those resources are helpful for people. So was there a defining moment when you knew your tent rental business was going to be a success?
Yeah, it was at the end of one summer when I looked at how much I made, and I was like, okay, that replaces my income. I don't ever have to work a regular job again. So not during that summer did I feel that. It was at the end of it when I actually looked at the numbers and I was like, there we go. That's it.
What was the biggest challenge you faced when getting your tent rental business off the ground?
Biggest challenge is, and it always has been, weather. I still get nervous when there's high rain or high winds and rain. I will go in the basement because there's nothing I can do about it. You can't do anything about it at the moment. So I just go try to ignore it and then wait for the phone calls. Mitigated those risks over the years. Like when I first started, all I could afford was 30-inch stakes. Then I switched to 40, 42s. And then obviously 3-hole stake bars and stuff like that. So that's come down a lot, but you still can't, do anything about a tornado. I got 2 tents that got destroyed 3 weeks ago in a tornado. So yeah, just weather stress has been like my only thing over the 22 years that constantly causes me strain.
Yeah. And I mean, as long as you're upfront with the customer and remind them, here are the things you have to do to get out. I mean, you lose property, but if it's done safely, those people will be out, because you would be surprised. People think a tent's a good place to shelter themselves. It's basically a big sale, right? A
Right.
big
Yeah.
tent.
And we've seen those videos on TikTok and YouTube.
Yep. So any mistakes or lessons that shaped how you might approach things differently today?
Yeah. The big mistake is thinking that that a certain item would be cool and people will rent it and then just buying it. And then it never goes out. So I
Yeah.
learned to put things on the website first, and then we record how many, phone calls for that item would be. And if it gets to
Yep.
10, it was like, okay, that item's good to go. I will know, at least we'll be able to pay it off. Same thing with like fancy stuff, fancy, cool, whatever. I thought Shivari chairs were going to go really crazy in my area. And so I bought 200 gold and 200 mahogany.
Yeah.
And then they never they went out, but like the problem was I had a person in my area who was doing them for $5 a piece, and they had like 5 different manufacturers chairs, and they were all chipped and they were all different gold. And
Yep.
every time someone called for mine, they were like, well, this person's doing them for 5. I'm like, go with her then.
Yeah.
And then there was 3 times in a month where we had to go bring ours and take hers out because they had gotten so bad to a point that everywhere she was bringing them would not accept them. But then at that point, I already had them listed for sale, and they were sold. And then the next year, all these people are calling me like, hey, we'll pay your price. I'm like, there's 3 years of you not wanting to pay my price. Now they're gone. So that was a big mistake, is spending money on things that you just think are cool or fancy.
Yeah.
A lot of areas are just like basics. Like you just need white chairs and white tents and all the tables. My area is rustic, so fruit wood stuff does well, but like the gold and the clear chairs and stuff like that, not a good idea for my area. I tried sailcloth tents thinking that was going to be great, and then no one wanted it, so I sold it. So knowing your area, stick to basics, and then test things out on your website first. And a lot of people get nervous about that. They'll be like, well, what if someone calls for that? You can either lie and say, oh, it's booked up for that weekend, or I just tell them straight up, like, that's just on the website as a test right now. We don't actually own it. We're just seeing if people want it.
Yeah, that's smart. That's good market research, right, with the customers. And then we had Shivari chairs when I had our rental business, and those are a beast to transport. I mean, if you can bring stacked 50 of just those nice folding chairs, that's so much less labor. Jobs go a lot quicker that way.
Yep, a whole order of Shivari chairs takes up a whole truck, basically.
Yep. Do you go to the ARA show or any of the shows to kind of see what's out there and talk to people, learn what they've been doing and putting into their inventory?
Yeah, I like going to the ARA show, but depending on where it is, like I go to this other show that's always in Orlando, so I don't want to go to the ARA Orlando one because the other one I go to is always in Orlando. And I don't go like every year because not that much new stuff comes out every year. I'd say like a good time frame for me is like every 3 years. I went to the one that was in New Orleans. That wasn't last year. I think that was the year before. And that's when I found out that the resin fake wood chairs have finally got up to par. They were trying to do like fruit wood and mahogany resin before, but it just looked kind of plasticky and fake, and it didn't have the grain. And then when I went to the New Orleans ARA show, I saw in person the new resin fruit wood chairs, and from a distance, they're indistinguishable. Not even from a distance, from 5 feet away, they're indistinguishable from the wood ones. And I was like, okay, cool. Now I can buy those instead of the wood ones.
Yeah. Is that the IAPA show you always go to in Orlando?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting show. I mean, you got indoor roller coasters next to animatronic dinosaurs. We always have our booth outside, and we were next to, it was like a Top Golf, but batting cages. I don't know if you made it out there. They were serving food and drink for free the whole time.
Yeah. It's very fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun. And it's an interesting group of people because there can be a group of millionaires who are trying to build a whole, park. And then there's the guy who's going to buy a $2,000 bounce house.
Yeah.
It's crazy there. But even if you're not into anything, it's still fun. All the VR you want, everything's free to play and do and all that. It's really cool there.
Yeah. And it's a nice spot. We meet a lot of bounce house companies who are already going to sites, right? And so they're thinking, well, I already got the crew. Why don't I look into getting into some tents? And so it's a nice spot for people who are doing something adjacent to come to the show and be able to buy all their stuff. So that's a fun show. All right. So let's talk about growing the business and some additional advice you'd have there. So what strategies helped you grow your rental business from a startup to where it is today?
Efficiency things. So like everyone around me just kind of hustles and hammers stakes and pull stakes by hand and carries things and whatever. I was fortunate enough that like in one of my first few years, I signed up for a newsletter from Tico Solutions or Tico Tent Washers. Tico Steve doesn't remember this, but they did have like a little email blog, and they must have only had it for a few months because he doesn't even remember. But the first one I got from them was like, would you rather make more money working harder or more money with what you already got? And then I just went into efficiency, focus on efficiency. So like, for a couple years, we would hammer in all the steaks for a 40 wide, and that is like 60 some odd steaks once you're using steak bars. And that sucked. And then you'd have to take half hour to like rest. And all three people on the job were just hammering. Once I got like a jackhammer or a power tool, it's like 20 minutes or less sometimes with one person, and the other two people get to do things. And then we carried 5 to 10 chairs by hand at a time. And then it's like, okay, let's put them on. I saw my friend, he has them all on wheels and then a cart. And it's like, okay, well, that saves a lot of time. So it was just everywhere in the process of everything. How can you make it a little bit faster? And then I know this is not entirely feasible for everyone, but if your warehouse has loading docks and a lot of your stuff is on wheels, you can just wheel it onto the truck and then lift gate it down. Now I know there's these chair carts that like have a special like hand truck for it, and a lot of people want to get those. And I'm like, I just get the movers dollies, because if you only got one of those hand trucks, you got to wait for that hand truck to be available to grab your next stack of chairs. But if everything's on wheels, you can just push it. You don't need to wait for a hand truck. And then electric hand carts and stuff, just any sort of tool that will make it faster. I just haven't gotten to the tent ox level. Tent ox level is really like when you're 60 wide and above.
Yeah.
And we don't really do 60. We don't do 60 wides.
Yeah. 60 wides are beasts to try to get up in the air.
Yep.
We had some for a while, and talk about pounding a lot of stakes into the ground. All right. So up in your neck of the woods, what are the 2 to 3 types of events, markets you guys service most often?
Weddings is my biggest thing. Corporate events isn't that much in my area. Central New York is kind of what everyone would think of Rust Belt. There was a lot of money before, but now it's all gone. So there's not a lot of corporate things. So it's mostly weddings, obviously graduation parties. And we do have colleges. So I do a lot of college events. So weddings, colleges, and grad parties, regular backyard parties.
Any particular thing you like about weddings or don't like about weddings?
There's actually nothing that I don't like about weddings. I haven't had that many bridezillas or anything. I've been able to suss them out. Like, you get a feeling. I've had a few meetings, and then the week later when they come back and say, okay, we want to book, I say, I'm sorry, we're all booked up. So I think I had like 2 bad experiences like that where I learned my lesson. Yeah, weddings are just generally easy. We stay away from fancy things. Like, we used to try to do drapery and stuff, but you find out at the end of a 5-hour day, you don't want to spend another hour and a half, 2 hours doing drapery with dirty hands, and like, you just want to be out of there. So we cut out, like, we're not trying to do the whole thing. We're just getting you to a point, and then you have someone else who specializes in the fancy stuff come in and do that. So yeah, I like weddings.
Yeah, you don't want guys with dirty hands touching pretty white things.
Yeah, exactly.
That are going up in the air. And you said you did dishware before, and then you got out of dishware. What was that?
That one's a little weird because I started it with an employee who was like a really good worker, and it was kind of like a separate business, but like the end customer didn't know that. They just called Tental Rental, and then we technically sub-rented it from the other company. And then he would also get his own phone calls and stuff because he had his own website. And that just wasn't working out, like, partnership wise. So that's why I sold off my interest in it, and he's on his own now.
Got it. All right. So you know a lot of temp people. You've been around for a long time. Are there any common or fatal mistakes you've seen other people make that might help our listeners avoid them?
Yeah. It's the focusing too much on how many items you're going to get to rent out, and not focusing on how to make what you're doing go faster and more profitable. Once you start looking at all these bigger companies, you see that they have tent oxes. It's why do they have tent oxes? Is it just because they like to spend money? No, it's because they want everything to go faster. And then the other thing I've seen a few people do is try to grow too fast and say yes to a lot of things. Even though I'm a proponent of saying yes to things, as long as you got a time frame to make good on it. But there's a lot of people who have tried to grow too fast, which isn't a bad thing. I'm conflicted on that one.
We've been trying to get Scott Woodruff on. If anyone's watching and knows Scott, I've sent him emails. We've emailed the group, but want to talk about how he built his and then where the idea for Tent Docs comes, because I think every single podcast we've talked about the Tent Docs because it's such a great tool.
Right.
You talked about profitability. So how do you manage your finances? Do you have booking software? Like, what things are ensuring that you're profitable? Because like you said, you saw the invoice for the Taylor rental, and as a worker, you think, oh, they made $1,700 on this. Well, if they weren't managing it well, it might actually have not made any money. So how do you kind of manage that yourself?
So every few years, you got to take a look at your insurance again, because your insurance can get out of hand.
Yeah.
So my insurance was getting quite up there, and then I paid attention to this guy who kept sending me postcards every month. And then I was like, all right, finally, let's do it. And he cut it down by 2/3.
Okay.
So check your insurances every so often. Again, I said, said it 1,000 times already, efficiency. It seems like it's going to cost you a lot to get that, $500 cart, but that cart's going to save way more money and cause you to be more profitable. Rental software, for sure, because it'll help on overbookings. Even though in the beginning, if you had to accidentally overbook and you got the money, it helps you grow. But when you don't want to be spending money, the rental software is going to really help.
What kind of rental software do you use?
When I first started, it was before there was like online monthly ones. So I got Rentmaster. I really liked it because it was a buy it once and then you're done. I think there was a few out there at the time where it was like a, recurring monthly. So I got Rentmaster. The only problem with Rentmaster is people can't sign or pay online, but I don't mind that. They just call with a credit card. We have the credit card on file. But Rentmaster recently they also have an option where it's like the other ones that are around today where it's pay monthly, and they have more of those features. But I paid $1,000 15 years ago for Rentmaster, and it does everything I need.
Nice. So let's get into some fun, interesting rental questions, some rapid fire. So what is one tool or piece of tent equipment that you can't live without?
Stake driver, jackhammer.
One small item that's in the glove box of every one of your trucks.
I've seen other people say zip ties, but zip tie cutter.
Zip tie cutter. Yes. You got to have that utility tool.
Every year I buy another 10, the same thing on Amazon. They're little cutters for like little tiny wire. And I buy a bright yellow handle so that you can see it if it gets put on the grass.
There we go. More efficiency. I like that. What kind of fleet do you have? Are you mostly box trucks? Do you do trailers?
Box trucks all the way because of putting everything on wheels and wheeling it in and off of the truck.
So what's the most memorable event or project that you've been a part of?
It was one of those times where I should have trusted my gut feeling. Their event was February 14th, in the middle of winter. And that February 14th ended up being like one of the record coldest in my area. Well, we put up a 20 by 30 frame tent off of their pool house because they just needed some extra space. And we had 2 heaters in there. And this was before I learned to tell them the expectations of the heaters. The heater's not going to make it tropical in here when it's negative 30. So in order for them to try to insulate it, they took their plow and buried my 20 by 30 tent and destroyed it. So the worst one ever is the most memorable.
Okay. Well, hopefully no more of those. And I remember in the winter, you're always like, I could really use some cash right now.
Right.
Let's try this out. Let's try a fishing tournament out on a big body of water, and not realize that stakes heat up and don't hold ice very well, even if it's cold outside. So, all right. So let's turn that around and talk about funny moments. Anything unusual or surprising requests you've gotten or bizarre things that have been left behind?
Not really any unusual requests or whatever. It's been mostly on job site things that we still quote to this day. Like this one person didn't know where they wanted the tent and they wanted it there, and their husband came out and was swearing at his wife, and he just kept saying, slope, Karen, slope. So anytime we're setting up where it's a slight slope, a few of us will just start screaming slope. You're walking in a backyard and sometimes there's naked people there. That's happened a few times. Yeah, just job site stuff is funny. And the customers you meet and things.
Upstate New York, near Woodstock, I mean, people are going to get naked and run in mud and stuff, right?
Right.
Most rewarding part of running a rental business, maybe something that people might not expect.
It's freedom in a way. You're not in an office, you're always outside. So I always try to remind myself that, hey, I've been outside for the past 22 years. That's cool. Seeing things that you never get to see. Like we've delivered to like a fake town that's set up for a military training for if they have to go into a city or whatever. So this entire town looks like a real town, but no one lives there. And then
It's like the Truman Show.
yeah, basically, yeah. It's for, urban combat training, and then delivering into like driving your truck into a hangar that dwarfs your truck, like. So and then seeing all these rich people's houses that you wouldn't ever see from the road because they live on the lake, and you're like, wow, someone
Right.
lives here. So seeing really cool things in your area, and then also if you plan on living in the same area for a long time, you will never need a GPS again. You just know where you are because you've been down every single road.
So Green Bay split into two parts, river kind of down the middle. And I grew up on the west side. Our facilities on the east side. I still have to throw Google Maps up. I have no clue what I'm doing when I get to the east side of Green Bay. All right. So big risk you've taken, and how did it turn out?
Restroom trailers. So we'd always go set up our big tents, and a lot of times, I'd say 50% of the time, there was this old man there delivering a restroom trailer, and he'd be out like way before us. And eventually I was like, we got to at least take a look at this. So yeah, I looked into it, and we just bought it cash, no like financing or whatever. And like, is this going to work? And lo and behold, it did. We're up to 4 restroom trailers now. And I keep saying we, because that's the same thing with the dishes. I started that with 2 other people. So I've never cleaned it. I don't know how most of it works. They just do it, and I collect my portion of the money.
There's a really interesting movie. I've only seen it once, and I was in Australia, called Kenny. And the guy, his job is cleaning porta potties.
Right.
It's a very interesting movie.
I wouldn't want to do porta potties, though.
No. All right, let's do some rapid fire non-rental questions. So if you could open another business completely unrelated to the event industry, what would it be?
I would have went to be a veterinarian and do a cat hospital.
Okay. I just got a kitten. He is crazy. He's about 18 weeks, and we got a puppy at the same time, which don't recommend. But they'll fight like cats and dogs. But the cat the other day climbed all the way up the screen door, which I didn't even think about. And he's all the way to the top and jumped down and was fine.
Right. At least they're growing up. They're going to be friends. They're growing up together.
I'm hoping so. They don't seem like they're very good friends right now. What is it about cats?
I don't know. I always grew up with cats and never really knew that I was a cat person until I lived on my own. And I was like, oh, I need a cat. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I really like cats. I don't like dogs at all.
I like dogs. And when we got the cat, I was like, all right, so how can we make this cat as dog as possible?
Right.
But cats they're interesting. Someone told me chaos in a fursuit. Because my cat's everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Right.
Like sneak up behind me when I'm laying in bed. So what's your favorite interview question when you're hiring someone new?
Okay, so I've never given an interview.
Okay.
It's always, I've lucked out more so than anyone else in this industry. It's always been a referral from someone who's working.
Okay.
I've never really had anyone that I didn't know or that person knew. Like when people ask me, how do I do employees? I'm like, I've lucked out. Every single person has been good. I can trace back all the people right now back to my first year, like who they came through. I've never interviewed anyone.
It's like a coaching tree in the NFL. Who came from Mike Holmgren and Mike Shanahan or whatever.
Yeah.
Trace that lineage back. Do you guys do a referral bonus, or is it just
people it's just like
really want to work with someone they know?
Yeah, they hear that it's fun because like we make fun of each other and stuff, and they can make fun of my mom and I can make fun of their mom, things like that. So it's like everyone has fun. So like their friends will hear about this crazy person that employs people and wants to come. Usually, so there's no interview question, but once I get their phone number, I send them the what they need to wear for the first day. And I send them a picture of Borat in his mankini. If anyone knows, just look up Borat mankini. Then they don't know what they're walking into the next day.
Yeah. Well, you can tell their sense of humor if they don't ever respond back to you.
Yeah.
If you had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what would it be?
Eye of the Tiger. It's, that's like my number one song.
Go-to fast food option if you're running late between jobs?
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite item on the menu?
The quesadilla, but as with a lot of things in life, I learned that you can make one a lot better and easier, cheaper at home, including the creamy jalapeno sauce.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you just mash up jalapenos and then mayonnaise and then whatever the internet says of the spices, and then it's exactly the same.
My go-to is the chili cheese burrito, but like an hour later, I'm always regretting my decision with the chili cheese burrito. Are you a big reader?
Yeah, I saw this in the questionnaire thing. No, I do not. I'm one of the people who absolutely hates business books. I think a lot of them are bullshit. I understand that there's people who learn from reading them, but I think
Yep.
it's putting you into like a lane that does not always work. I prefer like YouTube videos and asking questions and watching YouTube videos and blogs, I guess, that are not necessarily your business. Like I can learn something from some guy doing a pressure washer business, how he interacts with customers and his contracts and stuff. I know there's like certain books that everyone says, "Oh, it changed my life" or whatever, but I hate them and I don't get
Yeah.
anything from them.
So a podcast or do you have a podcast you really like, or a YouTube guy you like to follow?
No.
No,
No.
just whatever comes out
Yeah,
next.
whatever comes out. Like my YouTube algorithm and TikTok algorithms pretty much got me. So like
Yeah.
there's no one that I always go back to. It's just like, oh, here's a little tidbit, here's a tidbit here and whatnot.
Yeah. I have friends who are like, why would you ever feed your data to like Google or whoever? And I say, I mean, everything they recommend to me, I like.
Right.
So why wouldn't I share the information? It makes it a lot easier on me. So for me with the books, I like to do the audiobooks. I always say book on tape and then I date myself.
Right.
But I'll try to like pick out the nuggets for myself because like you said, that formula isn't going to work for most people. It's not going to apply to different industries. So yeah, I get what you're saying there. All right, so you're taking out a big, gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it. What kind of message do you want to get out to millions? And it can't be an advertisement for your business.
None of my businesses. Wake up, do shit, shit gets done, repeat. I made a little poster of that. So like,
Yeah,
everyone's kind of scared to do things. They're like, how'd you do this or whatever? Like everyone like from my younger years and like the family congratulates me on doing so well. I'm like, I didn't
yeah.
do anything. Like I'm not, I just did things. Nothing crazy,
Yeah.
nothing crazy.
Well, I mean, and you're going to fail on the way and got to learn from it and get back up and keep doing it. Cause I mean, that's entrepreneurship in and of itself right there is failing and getting back on your feet and getting on to the next day. So
Right.
final thoughts, any advice, something we didn't talk about that you'd want to say to someone who's just getting started in the event or tent rental industry?
It's so if you really want to do this, I think it's one of the few businesses that you can like bootstrap your way to become a millionaire. Like you start off with one item, a 20 by 20 tent, and save up and buy the next thing and the next thing. And as long as you put in the work and are continually trying to improve, you can eventually become a millionaire from a very small investment. There's not a lot of businesses where you can do the same thing. And this is a industry that's not going to go anywhere. There's going to be ebbs and flows, but there's always going to be parties, certain kinds of parties. Maybe for a stretch of time, you're not going to have corporate events. Maybe weddings die down, but you're still going to have small backyard things all the time. Weddings may ebb and flow, but they're going to be there. Like if you can get into this business and hustle your first few years and just really reinvest the money, you can eventually become wealthy doing this.
All right, Tent Guy, it was a pleasure to have you on. Want to start your own rental business? Visit americantent.com/tent rental and download our guide on 7 steps to starting your own rental business. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. For more great content, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you want to be a guest, email marketing@americantent.com. Thanks for listening to How I Rent It, and until next time, keep things intense.